This is Amplify You, the podcast about you discovering your message and broadcasting it to the world. If you're a coach, author, or speaker, you'll want to tune in. If you're looking for the best return on your time investment to get your message out to the world in a bigger way, we're giving you full access and behind the scenes look of how we're running our podcast, how our clients have found success, and what you can do to launch your podcast today. The world needs your message. I'm Michelle Abraham, the host. Join my family as we unleash your unique genius and find the connections you need to launch your adventure today. Join us and let's get amplified. Hello, Amplify You family. Michelle Abraham, your host here today. And I'm just delighted today. I am bringing you someone I just recently met and just adore. I've just met so many cool people through Laurie, and I have just enjoyed getting to know her over the last few weeks. And so I really wanted to bring her onto the show today to introduce her to you. And so I know you'll get so much value out of this talk today. So let's welcome Laurie Seymour to Amplify You family. So Laurie, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Michelle, for having me. I'm glad to be invited to the party.
You are welcome. So we are doing, I'd like to say this is a behind the mic interview with Laurie, because Laurie is the host of Wisdom Talk Radio podcast. So she's an international speaker and trainer. She's a 2-time #1 bestselling author, and she's also the founder and CEO of the Baca Institute. So 20 years ago, she was honored to receive the stewardship of a special historic technology that accelerates the process of innovation and creation in individuals and groups, which is so fascinating. So we're going to talk a bit about that today. So Laurie, I just want to welcome you to the show, and I'm just excited to dive in to hear more about all the things that you do.
I'm ready.
Awesome. So,
diving with you.
Awesome. So let's get started with, I'd love to talk about Wisdom Talk Radio first. So tell us a little bit about your show. What inspired you to start it?
Well, that's a great question, because it's not necessarily the usual path, but there was a colleague friend that I actually had met at Wisdom 2.0, a Wisdom 2.0 conference in San Francisco. And we were talking about wanting to create something. And as we were talking and as we started focusing on that, the first of all, the name came, and it was available, which was amazing. And yet the picture of what we wanted to do was as a collective. And so I invited 4 other women to join us. So it ended up being the 6 of us who actually kicked it off. And the idea was, to look at consciousness from every perspective: conscious living, conscious relationships, conscious business, conscious parenting, and conscious evolution. I mean, I could go on.
Our kind of talk. We love that.
Yeah. And so that's how we started it, as this collective where each of us had our own individual voice. And our own individual show or episodes, I should say, but we would also come together. We'd have a theme, talking about, I don't know. It's like radical acceptance was one of them, actually, and then we would come together virtually, of course, because some people were in other countries, and talk about it. And share that kind of wisdom, all of us coming from our own perspectives. And then as time went on, people got busy with other things. They left. And I really felt how important it was to continue doing this. So doing it with my own voice and interviewing all kinds of wonderful people to be able to bring that different kinds of wisdom, different kinds of voices into the mix.
That's so cool. I love that you get to share all sorts of different wisdom with the world through all sorts of different lenses of the hosts. So the 6 of you guys kind of hosted it all together, and we're also part of kind of like, it was like a round table that you were doing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that idea. That's really great. And so Wisdom Talk Radio lives on now with you as the host, and now you're bringing on other guests to share their wisdom on your show as well.
Exactly. And some of us were doing interviews before. It was a different blend in some ways than it is now. And then occasionally I get to interview a couple of people,
That's great.
at once, and I create that. And that is a dynamic way to bring forth wisdom.
Absolutely, and a great way to deliver it too, and all from all different lenses and different hosts' opinions. And I love that that you've blended that all together. So, what's been the best thing about having your podcast so far?
Ooh, probably I could say several things, but probably one of the coolest things is being able to meet people that I wouldn't have another opportunity to meet. For example, a few weeks ago, I got to interview Rupert Sheldrake. And a lot of your listeners may not know who he is. I've been surprised by the number of people that don't know who he is because I've known him for decades. And he is a world-renowned biologist. He's the one that came up with morphogenetic fields. And I was delighted that I got introduced actually through his publisher to be able to interview him.
Wow,
But
that's cool.
and then it's the people that you've never heard of that just turned me on in such a way that it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know this could exist.
And it's so cool, the conversations that you get to have when you're a podcast host.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, it's so great. And it's so neat. So, and the fact that his publisher reached out to you to interview him, did he have a book that was coming out recently too?
He didn't have one that was just recent. Actually, this was a publishing house that wrote to me and said, look at our catalog, pick any books you want, with the idea towards interviewing our writers. And I got to interview some amazing people that way.
Look at that opportunity. That's a huge opportunity.
My bookcase grew.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. I love it. My family always laughs at me because I always get presents in the mail, like books from people that send me their books before they come on the show. Right. And my family's like, how are you getting all these people to send you all these things? And I'm like, well, I have this thing called a podcast. It's a media outlet. It's very cool. Yeah. It's very awesome. The cool opportunities that come out of podcasting. Has there been any other surprising opportunities that have arose from your podcast?
Well, being part of different kinds of, not only organizations, but being invited to be part of different online programs. And it's been an amazing way for me to give voice to my own message. I mean, I don't want to omit that at all, that the opportunity to kind of speak directly to people without anyone else's filter is really an extraordinary opportunity.
That's cool. Yeah, it's neat to do to kind of start talking about your own thing too, because we don't usually have an opportunity to just like talk freely like that about what you do or what you offer. Now, Laurie, your work is really interesting. It's very different than I've heard of other people doing. You're working with creative intelligence and really helping founders and leaders, thought leaders specifically, and professional innovators use creativity, and you help them from like the idea stage to the implementation stage. So can you walk us through what that looks like and maybe explain to our audience understands what is creative intelligence?
That's a great question, because people start to think about creativity when they hear this kind of way of describing things. And it's so much more than we think of as creativity. Creativity is not about, oh, I'm a painter or a singer or a poet. For me, creative intelligence is that part of life where we're able to connect with all there is. It's the creative intelligence of the universe. And it's the fact that we are a part of that. We're not separate from that. And we have us and our particular frequency or set of frequencies. And then we have the universe, and we're a piece of that. We're an expression of that. And as we learn how to connect with that aspect of the universe, that is that what I like to think of as that field of potentiality, that we get to tap into the level of inspiration and direction that we wouldn't have access to if we're simply operating from our old ideas, our old paradigms, our normal ways of thinking about things. So this is a way of going beyond, and my work is about connecting people with that part of themselves, with that part of life that we all have access to. We all have the possibility of, because we are an expression of creativity, aren't we? Just by virtue that we're alive. But this takes it beyond into a way of being able to, I want to say, download your own original ideas and know that they're for you, know that they're ripe for your own energetic matrix. And so then it's not to just say, oh, I've had my inspiration. Well, and then you go back to your old ways of doing things. Well, I know how to do this. And it's not that you ignore that. It's that you bring that into the space of also being able to be inspired and directed for those next steps. How do we implement this? Who needs to be part of this? Who do I need to call? And you can actually create all of those steps and all of those pieces to get you to revenue by virtue of this powerful interconnection. So it's like your inner wisdom, your gut instinct, so far refined that you know that you can trust it.
That's the big thing, trusting it, right? I think a lot of people get these messages and like, yeah, I can't see how that's going to happen, so I'm just going to dismiss it, right?
Exactly. And it's such a good thing that you just said. It's such a smart thing you just said. This mornings, I do a twice weekly Turiya meditation live online program. And somebody was sharing at the end about her experience, and she said, and I've got this great idea. And she had the whole thing that came to her mapped out. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to get these people. That's exactly the way she put it. But she was so open and light about it because, of course, we don't know. And that's the willingness to step into that and allow the energies to start to show you. Those are the synchronicities and the quote unquote coincidences. And, I have an idea to connect with this person. I call Michelle Abraham and isn't she amazing? I didn't know that was going to be a connection that would be so delightful.
Yeah, it's interesting when you connect with people, especially if someone else is connected, like with us, someone else connected us, and you don't know what to expect when you get on the call, and then if you're open, it turns into such a really interesting connection that's going to be there for a long time, and so many other things open up from it too, right? It's just
and you can't predict.
No, exactly. So interesting. So, one of the things, what do you find are the things that happen to, say, a person or an innovator who is then connecting with this? What are some of the things, what are some of the results they're getting?
It's so exciting to me. Again, from this morning, because it's so immediate, several people were talking about that what came out of the time of meditation, and this is a particular way of working with energy during the time of meditation, is that they were getting all the next pieces of their ideas of their projects, of what they're working on. So this wasn't that moment of grand inspiration. It was like, they were getting particular details of how many people, what they needed to charge, what the next, the other players or the team members that they needed to invite in, those kinds of things.
Sounds like you really get a sense of confidence, right, in those messages, when then it's like that reassurance that you're getting that, okay, now I can believe this message, I can implement it, I now trust that that process, right? Yeah,
and part of the teaching, part of the training that I do in the potentiality process is to teach people about discernment, how to be able to know when you're getting an idea that's for you, as opposed to picking up the 32 ideas that might be for everybody else out there in the world, or how do you tell the difference between, something where your ego gets excited, you know, that place where it's like, ooh, yeah. And where you get thrown off, your balance gets thrown off. And how to have balance, because balance is a part of confidence. And when you have that confidence and that feeling of ease and start being able to identify that as oh, this is what it feels like when you're connected and you're doing what you need to do.
That's cool. I love that. And so you help people do this through a meditation and through some other process, the potentiality process that you were speaking about?
Meditation is a piece of it, and it's something called Turiya meditation. And in Turiya meditation, especially when I'm working, like I will be in a few weeks, in an intensive, like in a weekend intensive, I'm really working with the latest title that came up with was inspiration into action, because that's what happens. And it's really a process of initiating people through that weekend. And this is all done virtually now. Because,
incredible that we can all do that virtually now.
And people have a very different way of being able to connect with their own inner guidance system. And some people didn't, it was never even a thing. Other people, yeah, I know this, but it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And part of the process is an understanding of how energy fields work, an understanding of the way in which we can open up to the different energy fields that are out there and allow ourselves to receive.
Receiving, that's a big one, isn't it?
It is.
I was in a course recently, we were talking about receiving, where it was like 17 seconds of receiving equal to like a crazy amount of like other activities. Like just like the amount, if you could focus on receiving for, I think it was, so I have to go back and look at it. I have to go back and ask my friend Cheryl Brewster. She's the lady that was telling me this, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. So you spend a minute or something that you, anyways, I'm now going to have to go back and think and get that correct.
The idea
is
strong. Yeah.
Yeah. The idea is that you spend time like learning to receive, and that time spent receiving is going to, outdo so many other activities that you could do for the same outcome.
Yeah,
because
you're receiving
of it.
You're receiving from the universe. You're receiving from that field of potentiality, and that's how light and energy works. Is that it's like we're always being impacted by those kinds of things, by energy, but we don't often take time to consciously receive it and consciously interact with it, and then learn how that flow, learn the feeling of that flow. And being able to tap into it.
And is that feeling of flow, now that you've practiced this and something that you do a lot, can you turn that on in, like, if you feel like you're getting out of that flow, you can turn it back on very quickly?
Absolutely.
And I think that must be one of the things that you help people do, is shorten that time between, like, being in flow and out of flow.
Yes.
Or if you get out of flow, how to get back faster.
Exactly. What people find is that the pathway becomes strong, becomes kind of established, like anchored in you, so that it doesn't have to take any long time. It's not like, oh, I'm out of flow. What do I need to do? I need to do some big, long process. It can be, and I want to invite your listeners to this, it can be as simple as taking a conscious, aware breath. When I realize that my breath is keeping me alive, and the breath is intelligence. It knows exactly what to do in my body. I don't have to direct it. I don't have to know which gases need to mix with something else, because I soften. There's that softening when you take an aware breath, like, oh, there's an appreciation. And there's that word again, there's a receiving.
That's cool. Love that. Is there now, what if we built up some negative patterns and behaviors around, it's potentially stopping an innovator or a thought leader, or, from being that and be getting out there and having that potential that's for them. What are some ways that we can unhinder ourselves from those patterns?
I mean, that's a great question because there are always those. And, my background,
New level, new devil. Was that
what?
The new level, new devil? It's like a new, as you rise up, you have new patterns you need to break through, right?
Well, I don't even know that it's a new pattern so much as a new awareness.
Awareness of those patterns.
Yeah. I used to be a psychotherapist, and I was for many years. And so what did I work with people on? We're both patterns and potential. I think I've always done that. And I'm still, in a way, doing that because part of being able to connect with your own inner guidance system is you come up against those old patterns. And those old patterns might be self-doubt or self-judgment or thinking you're not enough, which is a form of self-judgment. So if we look at self-doubt for a moment, and we know that feeling, those of us like me who have had a lot of self-doubt, or kind of as a persistent pattern, I know what that place feels like. And that used to be, and I will say that truthfully, used to be so familiar. And it used to be what I thought was the truth. And when I started working in these ways and started experiencing different ways of being in energy, what I remember is feeling like, oh, wait a minute, this is different. This is not that. And because it felt so good, the feeling of self-love, I guess that's the other side, I think, of self-doubt. And it feeling so good that I could say, if this feels good, this must be this must be true. This must be truth. And then when, the self-doubt might creep in, and it just can start with a thought. It usually is a thought. And it's not to go down the rabbit hole, okay, what caused this? Is this really true? Not to assess it or try and process it, but to take a breath and say, wait a minute, that's not the feeling that was truth. That's something else. And it's kind of like waking up to what's real and what's true and then that gets stronger and stronger and stronger, so that, in a moment, if there's a thought of self-doubt that comes in, you're able to take a breath and move beyond it. And it just goes. It's like, oh, that old thing? And seeing those things as just patterns. They're not true. They're just patterns.
Wow, that was explained in really an interesting way. I know the concept, but like nobody's explained it the same way that you just did. I like the way you just explained it. It makes it really easy to understand. Like, true, this is not true. That seems
right.
Really.
And it's how it feels in the feeling body. So part of my work is about teaching people about their feeling body, because that level of what I think of as sensation, not emotion, but sensation, it gives us so much information. And it's some of the beginning stages of identifying what's true, is identifying, where do we feel things in our body? How do we feel it? Do you know the feeling, Michelle, of like you're about to do something and you get this kind of sick feeling in your stomach, and you say, oh, what, I must be coming down with something, or do you know that feeling?
Yeah, I usually get that feeling like before I go speak on a big stage. Like, oh my God, I can't do this.
Okay, that's, that one.
Yeah, and still, even after like how many stages?
Exactly. Yeah, I get that too. But that's excitement too.
It is.
But sometimes it's the energy is kind of showing you something. Your body's picking up something, not necessarily yours, but maybe you're going in to meet some people and they've just had a big fight and they're good friends of yours. but they've had a big fight and you're going like, what's going on? I felt okay before I came.
Yeah.
Maybe they're mad at me. You could do that number.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or you could just stay as the witness, like, okay, I'm feeling this. What is it showing me? And then learning how to decode that.
That'd be so helpful if we could all do that really well, right? It would solve probably a lot of problems in the world.
Truly.
Truly, yeah, it's interesting. That's so fascinating, your work. So where can we find out more about what you do, what kind of courses you're offering, how to work with you? I think this is something that I'm sure our listeners would be super fascinated about.
Yeah, I mean, I would love that. My website is thebacajourney.com. Or, sorry, it was the Baca Journey. Every so often that creeps out of my mouth. It's thebacainstitute.com. And Baca is B as in boy, ACA. And just really quickly, that is a place in southern Colorado, the Baca Grande, where there was a group of about 50 of us that spent about 20 years meeting there regularly to do our own inner research about working with energy. And that's where a lot of this work came into being. And so when I did the online thing about 10 years ago, I named it after that.
I love that. That's so cool.
So the BacaInstitute.com is where people can go. And as I'd mentioned, I have the twice weekly Turea meditation live online. And it's really a drop-in. People subscribe for a month and then, they continue or not, but they can come because I've got it there live twice a week, as often as they would like.
How do you spell that?
Sorry?
How do you spell it?
Oh, Turea. Good question. Yes, it's Turea. Anyway,
okay, just wanted to visualize that.
Yes.
I was trying to think of how that would be spelled. Okay.
And then I'll be doing the inspiration into action, Turea Meditation Intensive. It's a 2-day intensive that will take you through all of that process through those initiations. And what I think of as like the installation of an app within you, and the working with this whole process to quite amazingly, by the end of that weekend, come out on the other side with, here are my next steps. And then people, as part of that, are able to come into the Turea meditation live online to continue deepening and strengthening that connection. So that's October 24th and 25th.
Fascinating. That's coming up at the time of recording this, guys. So I'm going to get this episode out quick so you have time to go and check it out. How often do you do those often, or just this is one kind of?
I did the last one in August. I'll do the next one will be sometime early 2021, but I don't have that date yet.
Great. So if you're listening beyond October 24th, go check out the BacaInstitute.com and see when the next one is coming up. So,
yeah. And there's the Creative Innovator quiz there. Go take that.
Yeah, that's right. I've taken that as a really interesting quiz. So Laurie, thank you so much for spending your valuable time with us today. It's been fascinating to hear all the wonderful things that you're up to. And I know our audience will get a lot out of this talk. So if you can leave us with a few words of wisdom from things either you've learned on your podcast or things you've learned in the work that you do, what would that be?
We talk sometimes about an inner teacher or an inner guide or something like that. It's not a metaphor. We really do have this inner compass, I'll just say it that way, within us. And we can think of that as, is in the heart center. But it's not about emotion. There really is a way to connect with the guidance that can come from the universe. And once you learn it, once you realize it, it doesn't get taken away from you.
Wow, that's very cool. The inner compass, guys. Tune into it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Laurie, for spending your time with us today. I really appreciate it and look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm delighted to be here and thank you for this opportunity. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Absolutely. Amplify you family out there. Make sure you go connect with Laurie. She's amazing. And until next time, go out there, share your message with the world. Somebody needs to hear what you have to say. So be great and see you next week.